Shalom, everyone, and welcome to Covenant Calendar Club. Once again, we are so glad that you're here. And we would like to just give our YouTube audience a big shout out and say,
hello. Hello, everyone.
welcome.
Hello. We're glad you're here.
Yes, indeed. We are glad that you're here, and we pray that you will be richly blessed in what you're about to receive. We're all prayed up, but we're asking that the Father blesses the teachers that are going to be presenting this evening. And with that, we're going to go ahead and turn our screen over. Take it away.
Okay, it's time to go, is it, Mario?
It is.
Let's bring up share screen here. This is an exciting night, a very exciting study. I'm looking forward to this. It's going to be a long one, but it's got some great information in it. I might call on somebody to help me out with the slides, but I got an awful lot of slides to get through today. The first part, the introduction, is what we gave on fellowship last Friday night, and it was highly recommended that we add it to the beginning of tonight's session too, so that people that weren't there could see it again, and so that we could record it a little bit better. So the first about 30 slides are going to be into what we saw last Friday night. Here's a little notification. I use the word cycle, and it's used to designate one 24-hour period, dawn to dawn, within a week of 7. There are 7 24-hour cycles in a week. And the reason why I use this word cycle is because the day causes too much confusion with its ambiguous inaccuracy. There's too many times people want to say it's just a light season, or is it just maybe it's a night season too, or both. It's just too much confusion with it. This started back a long time ago when I was writing the studies for dawn to dawn studies, and the confusion was too great, so I opted to use the word cycle. Now, it might be a little bit hard for you to understand and get used to, but there's 7 cycles in the week. So if you could remember that, I would greatly appreciate it, because it helps keep things straight. Here we are with the short introduction. In PowerPoint number 9, the moon, oh the moon, a question was asked with the promise of the answer in upcoming studies. The next 2 slides will be a short review. This presentation will have a very specific answer for a clearer understanding. Matthew 23:13, shutting up the kingdom. In Matthew 23, Yahushua speaks to the multitudes in the hearing of the scribes and Pharisees. In verse 13, he begins to address the leaders with many woes. But woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for ye shut up the kingdom of heaven against men. For ye neither go in yourselves, neither suffer ye them that are entering to go in. Removing the key of knowledge. These leaders, who should be unlocking the meaning of Yahuwah's word, are instead taking away the opportunity for people to know and understand it. Luke 11:52, woe unto you lawyers, for ye have taken away the key of knowledge. These studies about the moon are all about this phrase, for ye have taken away the key of knowledge. What is the key of knowledge? When it was removed, what was inserted? What type of worship system replaced this key of knowledge? This is what we have been trying to present to everyone for the last, I don't know, what 20 hours, I think. So this is kind of a focal point right here. I'm going to read this sentence again. For ye have taken away the key of knowledge. Ye entered not in yourselves. Now that could mean that they are not obeying the Torah. And them that were entering in, ye hindered. Very interesting. A key is made to open a lock or door. By their false interpretation of the Old Testament, they had taken away the true key or method of understanding it. They had hindered the people from understanding it aright. If there is a sin of special magnitude, it is that of keeping the people in ignorance. And that is from Barnes' notes. What is the key for understanding the truth of Yahuwah's calendar? What is that key? And I would like to say that the key part of it is Shane. The other part of it is Tequfah. This is a portion of this key to understanding. And when they are functioning in unison, they are Yahuwah's key of knowledge. So I want you to remember those two words up top. If you're new here, Shane, that's the year or the word for year, and Tequfah, that's the word for the spring or for the equinox. Okay, we're going to look at the word for year. That's 8141 Shane. And this is the DNA of the word. This is what this word is made up of. This is what time, as Yahuwah designated, this is what time is made up of. Now read the definitions. To iterate, repeat, do again, or a second time, to be repeated. If there's something I would like you to remember from this whole study tonight, it is these definitions. Time, as Yahuwah declared in Genesis 1:14, must repeat, it must do again, it must repeat a second time. This is vital to the time. This is the definitions of the Hebrew words that we have seen in the scriptures. To be repeated. And down in the yellow highlights, secondly, the second time. When we see the word year in our scriptures, it is Shane, and that word year must be able to duplicate a second time. If it is not able to duplicate a second time, there is serious problems. Question: do the lunations sequentially duplicate after like kind, time after time, returning to the original place of commencement? No. A lunation does not sequentially repeat its pattern. It is not even close. Here's the etymological dictionary of the Hebrew language, and it records Shane as change, period of change in seasons, to repeat, do again. And Strong's records Shane as, in the purple, repeat, return, do the second time. And for emphasis, I'm going to read that again. Do the second time. Very, very vital. Remember, it is imperative to examine the root words to achieve a better foundational meaning of words. Let's look at the root word, 8138, Shana, of 8141, Shane. Root word for Shana, or Shane, is 8131, Shana. And I'm just going to read the gold words: doubled, second time, again, and 1 Kings 18:34 has it 2 times, a second time, and again, Job again, Proverbs again, returneth. These are the definitions of the root word. What does Strong say about the Shana? And you read in the purple: to fold, duplicate, to transmute, again, double, repeat, or do the second time. It's very consistent on these definitions. The fundamental base structure of an 8141 Shane's characteristic is that it inherently repeats itself automatically, duplicating its own like kind. And that's the pattern that we see at creation, duplicating after its own kind. What's next? Yahuwah's Shane will be done. I want you to look at the columns of years. This is the Shane year. It has 360 cycles, and it goes from Tequfah to Tequfah. And you'll see my cursor here, you'll notice down here, the straight line, there's the exact same number of days in the year, all the time, repeatedly, consistently. It repeats throughout eternity. With a Tequfah as your plumb line, Yahuwah's Shane year alignment is always consistent. Will the lunar comparison be similar? We're going to look at that tonight. I want to see if the lunar is the same. I'm hearing some background noise there. If someone could shut the mic off, that would be really great. Thank you. Ayah Ashar Ayah, I am that I am, does not break his patterns. Shane, duplicating from oneself, is the pattern established for this earth at creation. Your desire be done on earth as it is in the Shemayim, in heaven. Yahuwah's additional cycles onto the, I'm missing some words on top because I got something up here that I can't get rid of. Yahuwah's additional cycles onto the end of Shane. If you look over in the left side here at my cursor and you see this black rectangle, there's the 360 days of the Shane year, and after Hezekiah's sundial incident, there was an additional 5 days added on to the end of the year. It still goes from Tequfah to Tequfah. Concerning Yahuwah's offer, Hezekiah requested the sundial to regress 10 degrees. The result was a lengthening of the year from 360 cycles to 365.2425 cycles. Also, at this time, this miracle shortened the moon's lunation cycle from 30 days to 27.321661 days of the lunation cycle for the first time since creation. Now, there's a lot of people do not understand that the actual lunation of the moon is only 27.321661 days, because we have heard so many times that it's 29.5 days. The studies that we have just covered in the moon, the moon, that will has the information of why, where, and how that those days were lengthened into 29.5 day months. Yahuwah's Shane Moedim dates up to Hezekiah's option request. The Passover Festival, Abib 14. Unleavened Bread Festival, Abib 15 to 21. Pentecost is the wave sheaf plus 50 cycles. Festival of Trumpets, Tishri 1. Festival of Atonement, Tishri 10. Festival of Tabernacles, Tishri 15 to 22. This is Yahuwah's Shane year, 360 cycles. The worship festival calendar, before Hezekiah's sundial miracle. Now, the Shane way after Hezekiah's sundial miracle. If you look at those dates, you will see that they did not change. Those dates are intact as at creation. There's no difference. Yahuwah does not change. The worship year cycles did not change. So what was it that changed? There were 5.2425 new cycles. They were linked onto the end of the Shane 360 cycle year. Yahuwah's covenant calendar was and still is a 360 cycle Shana year with 5.2425 cycles linked onto the end. This is the exact format that Yahusha, as changing not, lived out the Torah before and after his death on this earth. It was the Julian calendar which dominated the world when Yahusha lived out his life on this earth. So let's look at it. Secular history documents. The Metonic cycle, or lunar calendar, was discovered by Meton the Greek around the 5th century BC. In 432 BC, he introduced it into the lunisolar Attic calendar. The Romans adapted characteristics of numerous calendars based on the moon for their own. Now, the replaced lunar calendar. The Julian's calendar predecessor, the Roman calendar, was a very complicated lunar calendar based on the moon phases. It required a group of people to decide when the days should be added or removed in order to keep the calendar in sync with the astronomical seasons marked by equinoxes and solstices. Do you find it interesting that it says it required a group of people to decide when the days should be added or removed? Who has the authority to do that? Does man have that authority? Or has man usurped? The Julian calendar, proposed by Julius Caesar in 46 BC, was a reform of the Roman calendar. It took effect on January 1, 45 BC by edict. It was the predominant calendar in the Roman world, most of Europe, and in European settlements in the Americas and elsewhere, until it was refined and gradually replaced by the Gregorian calendar, promulgated in 1582 by Pope Gregory. The Julian calendar is still used in parts of the Eastern Orthodox Church, in parts of the Oriental Orthodoxy, and by the Berbers. Note, the Ethiopian economy operated on the Julius calendar until recently. The Orthodox Church still does. It is said that the Ethiopian calendar has 13 months as well. An Ethiopian Orthodox man I work with confirms the 13th month concept, yet he declares the 13th month of the Julian calendar has only 5 or 6 days in the 13th month. This fact has been searched out and confirmed. Please note that the extra days, over 360, were not interspersed by the quarters. They were added onto the end of the year, preserving the integrity of the 360-day year. The Julian calendar also has strict 30-day months, with March 1 as New Year's Day. This was the calendar in all the countries that were ruled by Rome when Yahusha was on this earth. The Julian calendar was not determined by the Tequfah. It was determined by the lunar phases of the moon. And remember when I said it was brought forth officially in 45 BC? So when the calendar was determined by the moon, this is the same calendar that was in operation and enforced when Yahusha was on this earth. Something to think about. Who removed the Tequfah? And I'm sure by now that there are some of you here that know very, very well who removed the Tequfah, because you've been watching these studies from the beginning. Luke 11:52. Woe to you, learned in the Torah, because you took away the key of knowledge. You did not enter in yourselves, and those entering in you hindered. Do I relate the Tequfah, or the spring equinox, to the key of knowledge? Yes, absolutely. And very directly, I relate it there. Was it the system of the Second Temple hierarchy that removed the Tequfah? The same imposter system of priests that Yahusha reprimanded as blind scribes, hypocrites, blind guides, fools, blind Pharisees, sons of Gehenna. And here are the most two powerful ones, serpents and brood of adders. What does that mean? Isn't that mean directly as death? This is what he's accusing these people of back then. Why? What calendar format removed people from observing Yahuwah's way, which is the old paths, which are presently being restored? On the next slide, an attempt has been made to match the lunar full moons as close as possible to Yahuwah's Tequfah-based 360-degree completed circuit of the sun. The full moons, a year apart in the month of January, are recorded in an attempt to view a point of departure with a return to the same. And we find that in Ecclesiastes 1:5. That is Yahuwah's designation of a 360-degree circle or circuit. Point of departure with a return to the same. So I recorded the full moons in the month of January. And you're going to see, well, let's just have a look at it. Full moon to full moon, repeating like the wanderer. There's your years of full moons. Okay, I want you to look at these dates. The variation of numbers in these dates of the full moons. And remember, the Tequfah of Yahuwah is normally on March 20 and can be one day out, but that is only because of the decimal points over the 360-day year, or 365-day year, I'm sorry. But these dates over here, there's a huge variance. And then we go to these numbers. Full moon on January to full moon on January, there is 384 days. This one, there is 354 days. Next one, 384, 355, 354, 383. A huge variance. Remember, what we're looking at is, does the lunar year repeat in exact pattern of itself? Does it repeat after its own kind? Here is the new moons in the same year. Okay, your new moon would be on April 5 one year, April 4 the next, March 24 the next year, April 12 the next. Where is the constant repetition of duplication after like kind? This is your variable numbers in the lunar system. That is why the moon is called the wanderer. These are the closest new moons after March 20, which is normally the Tequfah. Another factor is, what if some feast-keeping groups decide to use the deceptive equal lux? Then things get thrown out of pattern way out of consistency. Charlene has brought to us the study on the equal lux, and it is absolutely fascinating for those of you who do not know about that. If you have heard of following the equal lux instead of the equinox, I highly advise you look at that study that Charlene made. It will open up your eyes very, very quickly. Now let's go over here. If you can see my cursor, here's these two gray squares, 354, each one, 354 days. And it appears like those have duplicated. See, they got the same number of days. But what about the dates? What dates did it take to accomplish that 354-day year? See, the dates are different, the dates are different, dates are different. So it is not repeating in a mirror-like fashion, not like the Tequfah. This is your lunar variableness. And I've also heard another word called fluidity that could be applied to it very, very well, because there's no consistency whatsoever. Is it actually necessary to chart a Abib 14 Passover on a lunar chart to see the variations? You can see the variations here of what types of years it's going to look like. Passover can be out to just about 4 weeks out of sync with the former year. It is that out of pattern. It does not repeat. Compare Yahuwah's simplicity in Shanei consistency. Okay, we're going to look at consistency one more time. We've just looked at the moon. We've seen the absolute variableness of the lunar system. Here is a look at Shanei consistency. 360 cycles, Tequfah to Tequfah. Tequfah plus 14 cycles equals Passover. It really is that simple. Why then does Yahuwah adamantly and emphatically despise the lunar calendars? Isaiah 1:12. When you come to appear before me, who has required this from your hand to trample my courtyards? Isn't that like desecration? Verse 13. Stop bringing futile offerings, incense. It is an abomination to me. New moons, Sabbaths, the calling of meetings. I am unable to bear unrighteousness and assembly. What is it about the new moons and the Sabbaths and the Moedim that are scheduled by the moon that he is unable to bear? Why does Yahuwah declare them as unrighteousness? It's because it takes people off of his schedule and puts people on Lucifer's schedule. It's clear and simple. Yahuwah's feelings? My being hates your new moons and your appointed times. They are a trouble to me. I am weary of bearing them. How many times have we read these scriptures and said, oh, they don't apply to us now today? That was for them back then. I'm sorry, but these are for us today. And when you spread out your hands, I hide my eyes from you. Even though you make many prayers, I do not hear. Your hands have become filled with blood. How terrible would it be to realize when you're pouring out your heart in prayer to Yahuwah and he's looking down on you and he's thinking, I do not hear. And when you realize that it's because of our own choice that we have removed ourselves from his system of worship and put ourselves on the lunar system, the imposter system, and Yahuwah says, I just don't want to hear it. I don't want to even know about you. He says, I do not hear. His next comment in verse 16, wash yourselves, make yourselves clean. Put away what? The evil of your doings from before my eyes. And the last 3 words of the verse, stop doing evil. Isn't that an incredible summary for the lunar system of worship? Replacing the Tequfah with any lunar phase to operate on a lunar calendar removes worshippers from Yahuwah's precise Shanei Tequfah Moedim dates. In other words, the moon is not Kodesh, ever. Why? The moon's lunation cycle is not found in the Matzeroth. The only place the Tequfah can be found Let me reread that. I didn't read that correctly. The moon's lunation cycle is not found in the Mazzaroth, which is the only place the Tequfah can be found. Therefore, the moon can never determine a Chodesh month. It is a fact. The Tequfah is found only as the sun moves through a perfect circuit every year within the Mazzaroth, producing the first Chodesh month of the year. The moon has nothing to contribute, not on that front. The Tequfah is established when the sun returns to Aries at the spring equinox. Then the sun repeats the circuit by rebuilding a new Chodesh year. Okay, here's some homework for everybody. And I really hope somebody will take me up on this. And I think Charlene's hoping to. Not think, I know she's hoping. Your homework. Aries is connected to Zebulon. Bethula is linked with Naphtali. Both tribes were linked to the light in Galilee. And if you read in the scriptures, you will see that they have a very high blessing placed upon them. Is there something to be noted here? Remember that Galilee was the area where they observed dawn to dawn. It is where most of the disciples were from. And it is where Yahusha spent most of his time, was in Galilee. Because it was in Judea that they wanted to kill him. But in Galilee, there was safety. This may be an interesting topic for further study, and I hope somebody would take this up, study this further, and find out the connections of Naphtali to Bethula and Zebulon to Lamb. It'd be a very, very interesting topic. Okay, back to the lunacy of the lunar cycles. Horrific lunar inconsistency cannot compare to Yahuwah's simplicity in Shanei consistency. Again, Yahuwah's simplicity in Shanei consistency. And here we see the consistency of the 360 cycles. Where my cursor is, it's all a straight line down here. We have the exact same number of days in a year, and that is Tequfah to Tequfah. Tequfah plus 14 cycles equals Passover. Consequently, when Yehuda, the nation to be in charge of preserving the ordinance of Yahuwah, agreed to capitulate to the pagan lunar-based calendar to determine the feasts of the Yahudim, they were not on Yahuwah's covenant Moedim calendar. That is why Yahusha was found 3 days after the feast of the Yahudim, presenting himself in accordance with Exodus 23, 15-17, in his father's tabernacle at 12 years old. And that is the age of accountability. It is also why Yahusha joined the Jewish Tabernacles feast in the middle of their week. Prior to this, Yahusha's covenant calendar feast of tabernacles had been fully completed. Now that comment that I have there is a solidly supported comment. We know for absolute certain that the Feast of Tabernacles on Yahuwah's covenant calendar was completed before their feast. Shanei, Yahusha said, "My time is not yet." But Yehuda's lunar-based calendar was always ready through human formatting and documented manipulation. And yes, that is fully documented many times. Yahuwah's incredible simplistic system, based on the Tequfah, at first sight, seems difficult to understand, simply because it is so simple. Our minds are conditioned to think it should be difficult. Yahusha said that we need to come to him as little children. And that is why things are so simple. He does not want to make it difficult for us to understand. The Tequfah is the key of knowledge that was removed. Okay, we're going to start the part 2 section right now. Creation's first Tequfah, part 2. Who are Yahuwah's Shanei witnesses? There are some very important characters that are direct witnesses to the Shanei year. And these specific characters have been declared to prove a lunar year. We're going to look at that very, very closely in this study. Yariyah, the Wanderer. And the Wanderer is a name that is given to the moon because that's exactly what it does. It has a very erratic circuit, very undependable. When Ha-Satan proclaimed, "Let me sit in the mount of congregation," you'll see that in Isaiah 14:13, was Yahuwah's lunar orb misrepresented and covertly recommissioned as the adversary's key of deception? An interesting question. We need to think about this very carefully. Can we question Yahuwah's accuracy? Did Yahuwah indicate, "I will return on an appointed time of which the moon will determine it, sometime by an undefined lunar phase"? Why do I have written undefined lunar phase here? Because in the scriptures, there is no place whatsoever that describes a specific phase of the moon, let alone one that we should be following. Remember, the moon phases can fluctuate nearly 1 month from year to year. Scriptures document Abraham as living in Shanei years that fully repeat a second time, sequentially, for each and every year of his life. Did Yahuwah allow the moon to dictate the birth of the Hebrew nation, Isaac? Or did Yahuwah abide by no changing, seen in Malachi 3:6, no changing the type of year identified and imposed on this earth, the Shanei Tequfah-based year, which was imposed at creation? And we find that in Genesis 1, verse 14. Which type of year did Yahusha use to start the Hebrew nation? The Mazzaroth and the moon, a spiritual light presence. The Mazzaroth. Let's look at the scriptural witnesses of years repeating in a sequential manner. Deuteronomy 14:22. Thou shalt truly tithe all the increase of thy seed that the field bringeth forth, year by year, that is, Shanei by Shanei. And in the verses below, you will see this year by year repetition, sequentially repeated system. This is these verses here. I hope that you will take these and look them up when you go through this study on your own. The moon does provide an agricultural contribution connection to the harvest. The growing seasons, controlled by the moon, produce in part the increase of the seed. The Mazzaroth, or the lunar month. Shanei 8141 is used a total of 875 times in the various word formats. This is 875 times in the Tanakh, and I hope you can realize how many times you will find this word Shanei written. 870 times. That's a massive amount to be through the Tanakh. There are approximately 840 witnesses to the evenly divisible, sequentially repeating year that Yahuwah identified in Genesis 1:14 as being for signs and what? And for his appointed times. Isaiah told us 7 times that if we want to know the ending, we must understand the beginning. And for an example of that, you can look in Isaiah 46:9-10. Genesis has been exposed, basically, as recording the Melchizedek priests and other patriarchs' lives as specifically and exquisitely operating on the 8141 Shana year, which thoroughly eliminates any possibility of a lunar year. A collection of various verses. Let's look at more verses that contain the word Shana, year. When you see this word, just apply the definitions and think what that might mean. Genesis 15:13. And he said to Abram, know for certain that your seed are to be sojourners in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 Shana. And you'll see another witness to that in Acts 7:6. So there is 400 consecutive, sequentially operating years. There is no chance of a lunar year in that 400 years, because they are, each one is designated as 400 Shana years. That is Tequfah to Tequfah. No lunar system there. Exodus 12:40. And the sojourn of the children of Israel who lived in Mitzrayim was 430 Shana. Your second witness is Galatians 3:17. That's 430 years without a lunar system. Exodus 12:41. And it came to be at the end of 430 years, on that same day, it came to be that all the divisions of Yahuwah went out from the land of Mitzrayim. On that same day, it came to be. Is it even possible to calculate the odds of this event occurring on the exact same day, 430 years later, on the lunar calendar with its extreme variations? Interestingly, it would be a simple understanding when considering Yahuwah's covenant calendar has an extremely accurate format and duplicates in absolute perfection, mirror image perfection. Exodus 23:17. 3 times in a Shana year, all your males are to appear before the Master, Yahuwah. Why does it not stipulate a lunar year there? And realize that this is in the Melchizedek administration. This was agreed to by the Hebrew nation 3 times before Mount Sinai had it ratified in blood. So when it says 3 times in a Shana year, all males are to appear before the Master Yahuwah, this is part of the everlasting covenant. Was Yahusha bound by statute to also attend the lunar-based feast of the Yahudim? And I'm referencing John 7:14 here. Why did Yahusha attend the feast of the Yahudim after his covenant calendar feast had already finished? What was the reason that Yahusha went to their feast? There's a very, very, very specific reason. And I need you to think about that. A collection of various verses continued. On the last question's note, what about when Yahusha was at the accountable age of 12 years? He was found 3 days after the feast of the Yahudim ended. What type of year was Yahusha then following? Was Yahusha witnessing? And I've heard so many times where people say, well, if the covenant calendar is correct, why didn't Yahusha witness for it? And I say, maybe it's because we've been taught to ignore his witnessing. Maybe we haven't recognized his walk, his Shema, and that is to listen and to act accordingly. I think we need to pay much more attention to what he did. Yes, what he said is highly important, but we also need to look at what Yahusha did on this earth. That is his witness when he walked it out. Would this same type of year, the Shanei, in which all males are required to appear before Yahuwah, would this Shanei year contain an atonement day? Why do these particular events require a Tequfah Matzeroth-based format? Could punctuality and accuracy somehow figure into Yahuwah's timing? Exodus 30, verse 10. And Aharon shall make atonement upon its horns once a year, Shanei. So every Shanei year, there's going to be a day of atonement, according to this statement. I'll continue. With the blood of the sin offering of atonement, once a year, that is Shanei, he makes atonement upon it. How often? Throughout your generations. It is most set apart to Yahuwah. Once a year. Since Atonement Day comes every Tishri 10th, does this verse indicate positively that every year that contains an Atonement Day is Shanei? Every year will include an even 12 months, and every year will repeat a second time by a mirror image, and every year will be a sequentially duplicating year. Is that what this is indicating to us? If years that contain an atonement day appear in this format, year 1 would have 12 months, year number 2 would have 12 months, and what happens if year number 3 has 13 months? That would be the lunar system. What is going to take place? Year number 3 has year number 3 shown as an exact mirror image? Is year number 3 a Shanei duplication of years 1 and 2? Or is year number 3 a rogue year? I've also heard that described as a mutation. Is it acceptable? Yes, the 19-year Metonic cycle demands a 13th month, approximately every third year, to realign with the seasons. Would this third year with 13 months be any different? Could a 13-month year possibly be a folded over duplication, exact second copy of years 1 and 2? We're going to look at this a little bit closer further on in this study. What is a folded over duplication? Isn't that an identical copy? Can we see this in the lunar system? We will be looking at this soon. What's next? Jubilees. This is a good one. This is absolutely fabulous. Leviticus 25:4. But in the 7th year, Shanei, the land is to have a Sabbath of rest, a Sabbath to Yahuwah. Do not sow your field and do not prune your vineyard. Verse 8, and you shall count 7 Sabbaths of years, that is Shanei, for yourself. 7 times 7 Shanei years. And the time of the 7th Sabbath of Shanei years shall be to you 49 Shanei years. That is 49 sequentially operating years. 49 years without any possibility of a lunar year being inserted in there by man, because Yahuwah has declared 49, each and every one, to be a Shanei year, which goes Tequfah to Tequfah. No moon in this count. What about the 50th year? Is the 50th year a lunar year? Verse 10, and you shall set the 50th Shanei year apart and proclaim release throughout all the land to all its inhabitants. It is a jubilee for you, and each of you shall return to his possession, and each of you return to his clan. So I'm going to ask you a question right now. I would like you to think in your head and ask yourself, between Genesis 1, the first day of creation, and where we are presently today, how many years exist that were not part of a Jubilee count? Is there any? Or was each and every year since creation part of a 50-year count in the Jubilee system? If there is a year out of that count, I would like to know about it, but I believe that every year since creation is part of the Jubilee count, and therefore every year must be a Shana year, Tequfah to Tequfah. The 50th year is a Jubilee to you. Do not sow nor reap what grows of its own, nor gather from its unpruned vine. We have just read verse 8 that informs us of 49 successive years that Shana is applied to each and every one without exception. Now the 50th too. That is a whole bunch of 12s that add up to 50 years. Does it? Can anyone see the year that is not Shana? The year that does not perfectly duplicate a second time? If only one lunar year is insidiously mixed into the count, will the scripture's statute requirement of 50 Shana years be fulfilled? The Metonic cycle cannot duplicate with perfection. So what happened to time? When a lunar year is inserted into time, time cannot continue because it does not duplicate according to Yahuwah's command. And we're going to look at that more in a bit. Time is eliminated. Yahuwah at creation established his Shana year format that inherently replicates automatically. When man inserts a lunar month, the mirror image replication factor immediately terminates. Then which God has the authority to command irregular time to continue? Is there a God that has the power of our Creator that can command irregular time to continue? Does there one that exists? Not that I know of. Only Yahuwah, our Elohim, can command time to continue. So what happens when a lunar year that does not duplicate, what happens when it's inserted into time? Time stops. How many lunar-based years in a Jubilee? 0. Until when does the Jubilee cycle occur? Deuteronomy 7:9. Know therefore that Yahuwah thy Elohim, he is Elohim, the faithful El, which keepeth covenant and mercy with them that love him and keep his commandments to 1,000 generations. That is long past our time, or long farther in the future than our time. We've got a long ways to go to keep these commandments. And no, there is no lunar-based years in a Jubilee. Let's look at the Hebrew word and definition for a scriptural lunar year. And I want you to think about this very, very carefully. Have you seen a word, a Hebrew word that describes a lunar year? To me, is only a black hole only when I try to find that word, because that word for a lunar year does not exist. Not that I know of. Okay, let's move forward. Did the moon lead out in the wilderness? Oh, here's a big one. I love this. Amos 2:10. Also, I brought you up from the land of Egypt and led you 40 years Shaneh, through the wilderness to possess the land of the Amorites. The wilderness years were all an even number of months, and were fully able to, each one, repeat itself in perfect duplication. Really, it is no wonder, because the pillar of fire was there 24/7 for 14,400 days, or 40 years times 360 years. What happened with Abram's seed? And he said unto Abram, know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 Shaneh years. Note, there is no possibility of a lunar year during this time frame. They were all Tequfah to Tequfah years, 360 days at this time. Point of interest, Abraham's seed was to be afflicted for 400 sequentially duplicating years that relied on the movement of the sun within the Mazzaroth for leadership. Now, what does 400 Shaneh years multiplied by 360 days of the covenant calendar Shaneh year add up to? Can anybody guess? I hope someone's got their mind in a calculator going really quickly. 400 Shaneh years multiplied by 360 days equals 144,000. This is too significant of a number to ignore. This is another one of those numbers that shows consistency with Yahuwah's patterns. 144,000, that's a very, very significant number. How about Enoch's year with the 364 days a year? What does 400 times 364, that's Enoch's year, he claims there was 364 days. What does this equation equal? 145,600? Did Yahuwah's perfect synchronicity just fly out the window? The earth made new, the worship years. Zechariah 14:16. And it shall come to pass that every one that is left of all the nations which come up against Jerusalem shall even go up from Shaneh to Shaneh, year to year, to worship the King Yahuwah of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. That is the end from the beginning. We need to remember, if we want to know the ending, we need to know the beginning. Adam did not live in any lunar years. It just didn't happen. His life is recorded as living in Shaneh years. Those are duplicating years. Yahuwah's people will again live according to his Torah, and that is shown right here in Zechariah. From Shaneh to Shaneh, we're going to go up to Jerusalem to observe the Feast of Tabernacles. 797 times the word Shaneh is translated as year. 3 times Shaneh is translated as yearly. That is approximately 800 times Shaneh references a year that is multiplied by a mirror duplication effect. Within those 800 times, how many references indicate a segment of successive years or jubilees? 800 times the Tanakh points to Revelation 12:1, where Bethulah, the bride of Yahusha, will receive victory over observing pagan lunar traditions while worshiping Yahuwah. The moon is under Bethulah's feet in a position of vanquished authority. See the study of Revelation 12, the woman standing on the moon. And the word Shaneh points to that chapter very, very closely. Yahuwah's Moedim. Let's look at this in simplicity. Genesis 1:14. Shaneh, years. The Shaneh years are for appointed times for Yahuwah's Moedim. There is no 13th month. There is no lunar year in Yahuwah's Moedim. It does not exist. Okay, the Matzaroth, a spiritual light presence. Throughout the Tanakh are 800 witnesses to the year that requires the sun to leave its home base and hurry back to its original place. Here we are in Ecclesiastes 1:5. The sun also ariseth, and the sun goeth down, and hasteth to the place where he ariseth. Note this verse very, very carefully. This is Yahuwah's designation of a 360-degree completed circuit from point of origin to point of, from point of origin to point of origin. It goes around 360 degrees. And this is going to become very, very, very important here shortly. Does this fulfill the completed circle definition found within the Hebrew word shaneh? What about Psalms? Their line has gone out throughout all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them he set up a tent for the sun. That word tent is tabernacle. There is a very, very special designated spot in the Matzaroth for the sun. It is like a home base, if you will. Verse 5, and it, the sun, is like a bridegroom coming out of his room. It rejoices like a strong man to run the path. Verse 6, it's the sun. Its rising is from one end of the heavens, and its circuit to the other end, and naught is hidden from its heat. If we go back over to the left side of the page and we read the verse again from Ecclesiastes 1:5, the sun also ariseth, and the sun goeth down, and hasteth to the place where he ariseth. There is your 360-degree circuit. And that is explained very clearly in Psalms 19:6. Why are we looking at this? Why is this important? Yahuwah has declared his parameters within the Matzaroth. That is the Matzaroth stars. Yahuwah's home base for the sun. Psalms 19:4. Their line is gone out throughout all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them he hath set up a tabernacle for the sun. We're speaking directly about the Matzaroth right now. There's your Tequfah, your spring equinox. And it was originally 360 cycles, and it is now temporarily, you notice I have that emphasized, it is temporarily 365 cycles now today. That will change. Yahuwah's parameters define a 360-degree revolution. Again, there's your Matzaroth stars. Yahuwah's outline for a completed point of commencement to original point is here based in the Matzaroth stars. And we just read that in Psalms 19:6. Here's the verse again so you can do some comparison. The sun also ariseth, and the sun goeth down, and hasteth to the place where he arose. Why am I emphasizing this? Because you're going to see very, very clearly that there has been a change, and it did not come from Yahuwah. Recall that one of the definitions of a shaneh references a circle, not a sphere. "360 degrees, not 364, which is Enoch, or 375, which is the Metonic cycle. Yahuwah registered 360 degrees for a completed circuit. Question, a sidereal month. Now, for those of you who haven't seen this yet, the sidereal month is declared by Yahuwah. That is the time it takes for a month to go a full, or for the moon to go a full circuit, which is next to 28 days. Does man recognize Yahuwah's 360-degree revolution of the moon's sidereal month? You see down there, it's 27.321 days, and it's normally rounded off to 28 days. Does man recognize this sidereal month? Does he recognize that it exists? Let's have a look. Here is man's documentation that exposes how the moon must exceed Yahuwah's parameters of a full 360-degree circle. Here is your synodic month. This is the lunar-based month on the Metonic cycle. This is what we use in our, or this is what the Earth, the world, uses in their lunar calendar today, the luni-solar calendar. The synodic month. This is the average period of the moon's revolution with respect to the line joining the sun and earth. Has anyone seen anything written in the scriptures about a line that is to be joining the sun and the earth? I have not seen that. I will continue. The synodic month is the period of the moon's phases because the moon's appearance depends on the position of the moon with respect to the sun as seen from the earth. Yahuwah's Matzeroth has been ignored. The sidereal month, here's their explanation, 27.321 days. While the moon is orbiting the earth is progressing in its orbit around the sun, and I hope you see a great big question mark there, but this is what they have written. After completing a sidereal month, that is the 27.321 days, or 360 degrees, here's man's proclamation. The moon must move a little further to reach the new position, having the same angular distance from the sun. This longer period is called the synodic month. This is man's adjustment to Yahuwah's peripheries. It is stated and it's documented. Let's look at it in a picture format. There is Yahuwah's 27.321 cycle of 360 degrees. That is the sidereal month. Man has added 2.2 days where it must move a little bit further. The moon must move further for a synodic month. 27.321 days plus 2.2 days as declared by man equals 29.521 days. This is how come we see the claim statements that says the moon has a 29.5 day lunation. This is where it comes from. It is a contamination of Yahuwah's 360 degree cycle. The Metonic cycle's 29.5 day lunar month is an artificial extension from man. This is Satan's abominable attempt to duplicate Yahuwah's 30-day covenant calendar month by using the moon. Who is this God? Who is the God that moves the moon, or that declares the moon must move 2.2 more days to create a month? The moon must move further for man's synodic month. Who is this God? What did he say? The Creator's decree is not good enough for me. I will be the God and make my own parameters. Where do we read that? Let's read that in Isaiah 14:13, where Satan says, "Let me go up to the Shemayim. Let me raise my throne above the stars of El, and let me sit in the mount of meeting in the sides of the north. The mount of meeting, that is the Kodesh appointed times or Moedim of Yahuwah. Satan declared or Lucifer at that time, declared in Isaiah 14:13 that he was going to control Yahuwah's Moedim. He was going to be the one that designated the times. And how did he do that? You just read it when it says there that the moon must move further so that they could adjust the sidereal month for a synodic month. And then what did they do with that synodic month? They removed the key of understanding. If we remember that verse from Luke, they removed the key of understanding and they inserted the moon into the timing of the worship calendar. That is why the Yahuwah accused the Pharisees of preventing others from entering into the worship systems because it offset people from Yahuwah's calendar. Where do the scriptures say anything about determining time by a line connecting the earth, the moon, and the sun? Has anyone heard of the concept of placing the sun at the center of everything in life? Have you heard of a heliocentric earth, where the earth revolves around the sun? Would that be a form of sun worship? See Deuteronomy 14:19, for a stern warning not to serve the sun, the moon, and the stars. And that is just a little opening thought there. There's a lot for people to explore behind that. Does the sun or does the moon actually move around the sun? Really? Talk to Joshua and see about when he told the moon, when he told the sun to stand still. What was moving? Was it the sun or was it the earth? Who has declared he will control the appointed times of Yahuwah? Is it the same character that controls this earth's calendars? When man declares a whole set of different parameters from which is in the scriptures, what is our choice? Should this physical synodic light from the moon actually be considered our spiritual light to determine our worship practices to our Creator? How many great lights did he really create? 1, he created the sun for light. 2, he created the Mazzaroth with light. Yahuwah declared 2 great lights. Are man's lunar geometry ideas found to be seriously deficient? Are we trying to peg the moon, in the round moon, into a square hole? Are we trying to place the moon where it does not belong? Man's lunar geometry ideas that the moon has light and is the ruler of the night produces too many serious gaps in the view of the scriptures. Yahuwah declared that there were 2 great lights. Again, why are we trying to place the moon where it does not belong? There's 2 great lights, not 3. Some notable gaps. There is no mention in the scriptures of a new moon, not in the Hebrew language. Yes, we see it in our contaminated English versions, but when you go into the Hebrew, there is no mention of a new moon in the scriptures. There is no instruction to regard the moon in the scriptures. There's commands to not worship or regard the moon. And very importantly, Yahuwah despises man's lunar months. In observing the lunation cycles of the moon, is it possible to declare the moon returns to its exact location within a 1-year rotation? Please consider when we used to look to the moon to determine the Passover, or determine when Passover occurred. Do you recall that the moon month demands from 1 to 4 weeks difference from the Passover from year to year? Does the moon adhere to Yahuwah's outline for consistently completing a 360-degree circle, point of origin, then returning to point of origin? Can the Shana repeat a second time, possibly be associated with the moon? Moshe and the moon. Moshe is one of those characters that everybody points to in Exodus 12:2 and says, there's the proof that Moshe tells us to go by the moon. So let's look at it. Does Exodus 12:2 really indicate that we need to go by the moon? Let's go. Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, identifying and commanding the exact timing of the start of his worship cycles, the way. In Exodus 12:2, did Yahuwah identify the moon as being the guiding light for timing the Moedim? Or is it possible that Yahuwah identified the Tequfah Matzeroth-based year to Moshe with blinding specifics right there in Exodus 12:2? Yahuwah's words. Now this verse, Exodus 12:2, I've got them in older editions of the scripture. The first one is the Geneva Bible, and it's from 1580 something, I think. So the spelling is going to be a little bit different. This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be to you the first month of the Shana year. And the next edition is from Brenton's Septuagint. Same verse, Exodus 12:2. This month shall be to you the beginning of months. It is the first to you among the months of the Shana year. So Yahuwah, in speaking to Moshe, right there in Exodus 12:2, positively identifies the Tequfah to Tequfah based year, and that is a Shana year. Top right-hand corner of your screen. There is no 13th month or lunar year. It does not, it's just not possible. Shana 8141 years. Okay, in effect, Yahuwah told Moshe, Yisrael's years sequentially repeat in exactness. Yisrael's years maintain an even number of months in which there are no remainder months, i.e. a 13th month. Number 3, Yisrael's years mirror by exact duplication the pattern laid out by the Tequfah Matzeroth-based cycle, which maintains a teshuvah, which is a turning or to return of the sun within the Matzeroth. Number 4, Yisrael's year is initiated by the Tequfah, or equinox, each and every year, period. Number 5, Yisrael's year will maintain the format of a perfect 360-degree circle, nothing more, nothing less. Number 6, Yisrael's worship year will maintain perfect symmetry without change ever. Question to ponder. Can prophecy be fulfilled in any other type of a year than a 360-day Shana year? Why do I ask that? Because all prophecy is laid out in strict 30-day months. No, that does not include 31-day month, nor does it include 29.5-day months. Prophecy is laid out in strict 30-day months, exactly as the Shana year contains. In Deuteronomy 11:10-12, Moshe is describing to the Israelites of the type of land that they are going to inherit. Moshe then tells them of the yearly condition that Yahuwah has for them. Deuteronomy 11:12. a land which Yahuwah your Elohim looks after. The eyes of Yahuwah your Elohim are always on it, from the beginning of the Shaneh year to the latter end of the Shaneh year. So that is a complete year, Tequfah to Tequfah. Yahuwah has promised that he will always be paying attention and looking after that land. Question: is it strange that Yahuwah always does not commit him to watching over the land in a lunar calendar's 13th month, nor on the non-accountable lunar month days? Why does Yahuwah exclude himself from the lunar calendar? Why? Is it because it does not exist in Yahuwah's kingdom? What does the Melchizedek covenant declare for the time a servant must be freed? Exodus 21:2. When you buy a Hebrew servant, he serves 6 Shaneh years, and in the 7th he goes out free or not. A lunar calendar must of necessity adjust the calendar approximately every 3rd year to be as close as possible to the seasons. This adjustment demands a 13th month to be added onto the 12th month. The Jews have given this 13th month the same name as the 12th month, which is named Adar, or Adar, the 12th, as Adar, the 13th month. And this happens approximately every 3 years. Yet in Shaneh, in which the Hebrew servant is required to work, there is no 13th month. It does not happen. Yet the Melchizedek covenant declares a Hebrew slave must work 6 Shaneh years, and the 7th Shaneh year that the slave goes free. What does this mean in terms of timing? Each of those 7 years must support the concept of being repeatable the second time in absolute exactness. And here's a definition again, just to remind us that it's from the Hebrew and Aramaic lexicon of the Old Testament, and it's by Kohler and Baumgartner. Shaneh, look at the definitions. Double, to make double, fold, repeat, to do a second time. Is there any possibility of a rogue variation being included in that definition? I cannot see it. The sum of months in each year within the 7 years the slave must serve will be divisible by 2 and have 0 remainder months left over. 13 cannot be divided evenly. Therefore, 13 cannot have any affiliation whatsoever with the Shaneh year. According to the Melchizedek covenant, a Hebrew slave was never required to work in a lunar year of any type. Think about that for a moment and consider the deep ramifications this brings to the lunar-based calendar platform. Is it even possible that Satan could impose his lunar years on a Hebrew slave? For some reason, Yahuwah does not recognize nor accept that man requires a 13th month every 3rd year or so to realign his lunar calendar with the seasons. Will this change with a testimony from Jeremiah? Jeremiah 32:1. The word that came to Yirmiyahu from Yahuwah in the 10th year, that is Shaneh, of Tzidkiyahu, sovereign of Yehuda, which was the 18th Shaneh year of Nebuchadnezzar. Okay, there is 18 years of Shaneh years which have no lunar involvement whatsoever. Tzidkiyahu was in his 10th year that contained an even 12 months, no more and no less. And notice, even Nebuchadnezzar's life mirrored a Tequfah-based repeatable the second time, calendar. There was no lunar year recorded for his life. Interesting, very, very interesting. What about the persistent suggestion that Ezekiel portrays a 13th month in the scriptures? Could it possibly be true? How many times have we been told, oh yes, Ezekiel exposes a 13th month in the scripture? And this is very told to us. I've been told so many times on that. Let's look at it. Here are the verses that have year in our scriptures as seen in Ezekiel. Remember, each word year has come from Shane. And there is the verses below in Ezekiel that all have the word year from Shane. These are the verses within which Ezekiel has referenced a Tequfah activated, Mazzaroth-based, sequentially repeating, mirrored pattern of perfect duplication, year. Is that a mouthful? Yes, but it perfectly describes the Tequfah-based year, a Shane year. There are 17 verses that demand a Tequfah-based 12-month year. This is a quote here from an article promoting that the 13th month is shown in Ezekiel. Let's read it. Now in Ezekiel 4, 1-11, he is given instructions by Yahuwah to lay on his left side 390 days. And when he accomplishes this, he is to then lay on his right side 40 days, equaling a total of 430 days. The next time reference in Ezekiel is found in chapter 8:1, where we see that Ezekiel was sitting in his house in the 6th year of King Jehoiakim's captivity on the 5th day of the 6th month. This shows that Ezekiel had finished his instructions given in chapter 4 because he was sitting in his house, not lying on either his left or right side. If Ezekiel was using a strictly solar calendar, he could not have possibly obeyed Yahuwah's instructions by the time reference given in Ezekiel 8:1. Well, let's have a look at it. And I want you to notice closely that verse Ezekiel 8:1. We're going to look at that very closely. But first, let's take a close look at the texts in Ezekiel. The claim is that a lunar-based calendar is what guided Ezekiel to perform his duties commanded by Yahuwah. Again, here are the texts from Ezekiel that have the word Shane translated into English word year. And there, once again, those are the texts. And I hope that you will take these texts and that you will go through each one and prove that each one has Shane behind it. What is the lunar word for a year? Ezekiel, lunar years? Where are the texts? Where's the lunar year proof? Show me. I'm going to review the primary word for Shana. This is the root word, and I'm just going to read the gold words at this time. Doubled, second time, again, and 2 times there's a second time, again, 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 and returneth. Why are the opposite word meanings being emphasized? Now, I want you to look below in this Strong's definition, and you'll see the highlighted words, transmute, alter, and change. Can this indicate a lunar year? Would there be a change from the Tequfah to Tequfah? Would it transmute into a lunar year? H8138 also has the definitions showing a change, a transmute, or alteration. Can these primitive root definitions also be applied to Yahuwah's year? If one looks carefully at these texts, the only time a change is applicable is when the context is directly concerning a human. However, the change or alteration is most certainly used and highly important when Yahuwah declares he does not change nor alter his way. And you will see that in Psalms 89:34 and Malachi 3:6. Since we see that prophecy is accounted for in 360-day duplicatable years, which of necessity must repeat over time and time again, reference Jubilee years, a definition of change and transmute simply cannot be applied to Yahuwah's covenant year. What primitive root definition then remains compatible? Have you seen this? Have I said it? How many times? To repeat a second time. This is the imperative characteristic of a Shane year. It must duplicate from within itself after the pattern of creation. Duplicate after like kind. That is Yahuwah's pattern, and he does not change. Does this mean the year needs to only duplicate itself once, making a total of 2 years? At this point, will the duplication restriction be lifted, providing grounds for change in the length of the year, i.e. the lunar 13th month? No. Each Shane scriptural year accounted for has the duplication repeatable format applied to it. When scripture tells us the Jubilee years are Shane, then each of those 50 years must be able to duplicate itself sequentially in a perfect mirrored format. The lunar year with the 13th month is simply and fully incapable of this perfect symmetrical sequentially duplicating format. To repeat a second time, the Jubilee year sequences. At which point in time did Yahuwah declare that the Jubilee sequence would terminate? Or do they ever terminate? How often does the Shane year repeat itself? If it inherently has the duplication characteristic within itself, will it ever stop duplicating? Can that inherent characteristic of duplicating after like kind, can that define Shane as eternity? Just a thought. Let's go back to Ezekiel. Ezekiel 1 and 2. He gives us a definite outline of a Shane sequentially repeating year. The lunar-based year cannot produce duplicated sequentially repeating years. Hence, it becomes quite standard to understand the type of year format that Ezekiel is referencing is a Mazzaroth, Tequfah-based 12-month year. And that would be without any variance. The only type of year that can possibly duplicate perfectly is the one that produces 12 types of fruit, one for each month, every month. And that's referenced in Revelation 22:2. Ezekiel is telling us that he accounted those verses as timed by the Tequfah. That means the following year also must be a duplicate of the primary year. The next year also had a perfect 12-month format, which duplicated itself a second time, making a succession of 3 years, or a perfect 36 months governed by the position of the sun within the Mazzaroth, determined as the Tequfah. Okay, this is where it gets interesting. Here we are with Ezekiel 8:1, where it is suggested time and time again that this verse indicates a clear 13th month has been revealed. In chapter 8:1, what does the Hebrew word for year reveal? Is it the Hebrew word for a lunar year? Is there such a word? I have not found the Hebrew word that describes a lunar year. I do not believe it exists. So let's look at Ezekiel 8:1. And it came to be in the 6th Shane, there is 6 years, 6 consecutive years of Tequfah-based years. And I continue, in the 6th month, on the 5th of the month, as I sat in my house with the elders of Yehuda sitting before me, that the hand of the master Yahuwah fell upon me there. Ezekiel 8:1 positively identifies 6 Tequfah Matzeroth-based, duplicating, repeating a second time, type of year. The lunar-based calendar year simply cannot fulfill the Hebrew definitions for a Matzeroth Tequfah governing year. So right there in Ezekiel 8:1, he identifies with his own words in his own writing what types of year that he was living and what types of year guided the lives at that time. And they are Tequfah-based Shaneh years where there is 12 months each, a strict 30-day month. That is your Shaneh year that Yahuwah instilled on this earth at creation. It does not change. By Hebrew definition, and a massive amount of solid evidences in many scriptures, it is absolutely impossible that Ezekiel was portraying a 13th month. By Ezekiel's own testimony, a 13th month is just not possible. The Tequfah Matzeroth calendar has a Hebrew word that perfectly describes it, Shaneh. What is the scriptural Hebrew word that by definition perfectly describes a lunar year of 13 months? Is there one? I don't think so. What light can Malachi shed on this topic? Malachi 3:2. And who is able to bear the day of his coming? And who is able to stand when he appears? For he is like the fire of a refiner, and like the soap of a launderer. And he shall sit as a refiner and a cleanser of silver, and he shall cleanse the sons of Levi, and refine them as gold and silver. And they shall belong to Yahuwah, bringing near an offering in righteousness. Then shall the offering of Yehuda and Jerusalem be pleasant to Yahuwah. And what does it say here? Pay attention. As in the days of old, in the former years. That, once again, is Shaneh. Good description. Let's go back up to the very first verse, verse 2, and let's connect this. And who is able to bear the day of his coming? This is the reference that Malachi is connecting with the former years, the former Shaneh years. So at his coming, there is going to be a 360-day Shaneh year, Tequfah to Tequfah. If you want to understand the ending, we need to understand the beginning. Very interesting words from Malachi. Okay, we're looking again at Malachi 3 on the Shaneh years. Without going into the meaning of the whole verse, let's focus on the type of year that Yahuwah declares as the former years. These former years will duplicate in perfect mirrored symmetry. The former years had 12 months with full alignment in the 12 fruits for the 12 months found in Revelation 22:2. The former years had an even number of months divisible without a remainder month left over. That eliminates a 13th month in a lunar year, and that eliminates the lunar year totally. The former years started with the Tequfah abiding by the Hebrew scripture definitions. They did not deviate with alternative books with different descriptions other than what is in Yahuwah's preserved word. The former years, the Shaneh years, depended squarely on the Matzeroth, which is the grand timepiece of Yahuwah. The former years show full alignment with Solomon's 12 captains, one for each month. Solomon never had a 13th captain. Yahuwah chose Solomon to guide Yisrael. Solomon, being the most intelligent man on this earth, knew very well that a 13th month did not exist. nor did the lunar calendar. Hence, Solomon never chose a 13th captain. It was not needed. Shane. Yahuwah's future years have everything a lunar year cannot contain nor fulfill. Is there more evidence? Does a bear walk in the woods? Yeshayahu 61 verse 2. Well, we're going to start with verse 1 first. The Spirit of the Master Yahuwah is upon me, because Yahuwah has anointed me to bring good news to the meek. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim release to the captives, and the opening of the prison to those who are bound, to proclaim the acceptable year of Yahuwah and the day of vengeance of our Elohim, to comfort all who mourn. I'm going to emphasize this on the acceptable year of Yahuwah. I'm going to read this again. The Spirit of the Master of Yahuwah is upon me, because Yahuwah has what? He has anointed me to bring good news. In other words, what Isaiah is going to tell us is very, very serious, and it is solid foundational truth. What is he doing? He's come to proclaim the acceptable year of Yahuwah, and that year is what? Shane, your Tequfah-based year. There is no 13th month in a Shane Tequfah-based year. And yes, we are only considering the actual physical portion of this text right now. Let's review Malachi 3:6 and 4:4, the acceptable year of Yahuwah. Shane. Malachi 3:6. For I am Yahuwah, I shall not change, and you, O sons of Yaakov, shall not come to an end. Malachi 4:4. Remember the Torah of Moshe. Did he know we were going to forget? I believe so. That is why the word remember is there. Let's return back to the Torah of Moshe for instruction. I'll start again. Remember the Torah of Moshe, my servant, which I commanded him in Horeb for all Yisrael, laws and right rulings. The Shane is in the Torah of Moshe. And here's a refresher for James 1:17, the acceptable year of Yahuwah, which is Shane. James 1:17. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is what? No change and nor shadow of turning. What does that nor shadow of turning come from? Let's look at it. The word is trope, and the definition is a turning of heavenly events. And it is a feminine noun that sits very, very well beside Shemesh, the feminine noun for the sun. For it is the sun which does the teshuvah, that is the turn. It is the sun which does the turn halfway through its circuit to come back to the original point where it started out with. The acceptable year of Yahuwah, Shane, Tequfah, and Matzeroth. This is Yahuwah's designated time system for this earth and for his festivals. Number 13. Know therefore that Yahuwah thy Elohim, he is Elohim, the faithful El, which keepeth covenant and mercy with them that love his commandments to 1,000 generations. What place does that number 13 have? None. There's zero place for a lunar year, especially ones with 13 months. That's what happens in view of Yahuwah's Shane years. The lunar-based year simply disappears because it does not exist. Is it possible that Shanae can describe eternity? This box below symbolizes one full Shanae year, Tequfah to Tequfah. By the inherent definition characteristic of repeat a second time, it must consistently repeat itself through perfect duplication or perpetual duplication. There is your second Shanae year. It has duplicated. Because the first Shanae that you see existed, the second Shanae must also be generated. It too, through perfect duplication, is also Shanae. The second Shanae, and then it too must, by inherent characteristic, duplicate itself again and again, over and over. Shanae number 1, from where did it derive? Would there not have been a Shanae year prior to it? Otherwise, the Shanae year where you see the number 1 above it, it could not exist either. So there was a Shanae year prior to that. I'm going to back this up. Let's watch that. Duplication. Interesting. What if Shanae was occurring in Yahuwah's kingdom, and then Yahusha created the earth here? Genesis 1, in the beginning Elohim created the Shemayim and the earth. Yahuwah also established the Israelite nation timed by the Shanae. It was the birth of Isaac. Shanae continues to repeat after its own kind as the pattern imprinted in Genesis 1:14. Moshe in Exodus 12:2 was listening. This month is the beginning of months for you. It is the first month of the Shanae year for you. And as we see, Shanae just continues to repeat. Can that be eternity? Revelation 12:1. Bethula receives victory over lunar traditions of man. Shanae replicates itself. Why? Did you ever question that? Why does the Shanae year duplicate itself? I think there's a very, very, very good reason. Because Yahuwah declared it. Revelation 22:13. I am the Aleph and the Tav, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. Here is a verse that puzzles me when so many people ask me or tell me that the law is done away with and we don't have to obey Yahuwah's laws any longer. I wonder how they read this verse. Let's look at it. Blessed are those doing his commands, so that the authority shall be theirs unto the tree of life, and to enter through the gates into the city. What will these people be doing in terms of his commands if there is none? This is where the term Shema comes into my thoughts, because we need to listen and act accordingly. We need to walk out our convictions. Acknowledgement alone leads into the city. We must act upon our convictions. Revelation 22:17. And the Spirit and the bride say, come. And he who hears, let him say, come. And he who thirsts, come. And he who desires it, take the water of life without pain. The bride will be observing covenant calendar, the Tequfah Mazzaroth-based calendar, which has 12 months per year, which duplicates repeatedly in a folded over, perfect symmetrical format. The bride invites you to the covenant calendar. The layers of deception and unbelief run deep and are many, just like layers of this rose. Somehow we must dig into the center and find the firm root, the first petal, if you will. I want to speak a little bit here about unbelief. And I have been guilty of this myself, and I need to improve on this myself. What about unbelief? Here is a quote from A Day by Day on the Best of Spurgeon by Dolores Copeland, and it is the January 2 devotional reading. Unbelief is always questioning. She, unbelief, does not know what she wants. Unbelief has a very attentive ear to every new notion. When this man over here has a novel doctrine and someone over there has another fresh idea, unbelief goes helter-skelter, this way or that. She hears voices crying, lo here and lo there, and like a silly bird she is lured and snared. Which road? Belief or unbelief? This is exactly what is happening with many connected to counterfeit calendars. They battle with unbelief, not knowing what to do. Where has that unbelief come from? How has it been instilled in their minds? And I would like to refer to ulterior books with alternative or a different agenda than what Yahuwah has written for us. These books that are not supported by the scripture, they instill doubt into people who read them. That is why we need to be very, very, very careful of the sources that we consider. This is where doubt comes from. Why? What happens with unbelief? Let me continue. Most go here and there and everywhere to find truth, especially to the internet, as if all the truth will be found there in one packaged document. Seeking everywhere, except a thorough search of the scriptures. Let us base our beliefs for the covenant calendar in the scriptures. And this brings us to the end. May your name be found among the numbers of those that believe his commands. So what's next? What are we going to be presenting next? What topic should we look at? We have been asked many, many times, many inquiries about the Day of Atonement. A Day of Atonement can be controversial to people who have not looked closely at it. Myself, I find it is one of the very best studies there is that exposes dawn to dawn. It is an excellent study. Some questions. What characteristic of starting the Atonement Sabbath by the evening of Tishri 9 causes it to take part on 2 days? Does Yahuwah declare Atonement Day on 2 days? Where has this contamination come from? We're going to look at it. When does the actual Sabbath day end? When does the actual Sabbath Day of Atonement begin and when does it end? What are we commanded to begin on the evening of Tishri 9? These are some things we're going to look at coming up. That is the end of today's presentation. If you need assistance with this information, we're always there to help. And here are the ways that you can contact us and ask us questions. That's it for today. Thank you everyone for being patient. And now we're going to take questions. Is there anybody that has questions on what you have seen tonight?
Fabulous teaching. I think it's